Good evening, donc. Welcome to the second 2020 Masterclass of the Rendez-vous de la Création. And before we start, I'd like to apologize to you, the students, and to our guests as well, for not presenting this conference in our usual format. Since our last Rendezvous, 2020 went full 2020 on our heads. So the campus is now closed and we're all under lockdown, and we had to resort to Zoom. So I'm sorry you won't have the studio experience this time. I'm sorry also that I won't get to meet in person our next guest, but I really want to thank her for agreeing to this imperfect solution. I'm sure that we'll make the most of it, and that we will be able to show you some of her great work and get to know how she works and her vision of what creation means. And we'll have 1 hour to do so. The first 30 minutes will be about getting to know our guest and her work. The other 30 minutes will be devoted to your questions. If you have a question and if you'd like me to ask the question to our guest, please use the Q&A tab on the Zoom app, and it's right at the bottom of your screen. Please don't use the chat. I simply won't see your question. And if you don't ask questions and if I don't get to see them, then it's only myself having a great time. And that would be too bad, because these masterclasses are all about giving you access to great creators. So please use that chance. And in sort of an introduction to this masterclass, I'd like to ask you just a couple of questions to you, students at home. Have you actually ever wondered how an object is born? Is there an object in your apartment or in your room that you particularly like? And do you even know why? Is it because it's comfortable, or it's practical, or comfortable, or beautiful? I don't know. Because if there's an everyday poetry in some of the objects that surround us, that means there are object poets, in a way, people who can mend fabric, who can shape daily life into something more than just an item we can use. And tonight we have the pleasure of hearing from such a craftswoman. She studied at l'ESSEC and Sciences Po before turning to design and founding her own studio. She received numerous awards for her work, including the Grand Prix du Design de la Ville de Paris and the prize for the public of the design parade at La Villa Noailles in France. In 2018, the Musée des Arts Décoratifs in Paris dedicated a solo show to her work. She's also a stage designer, having worked with choreographer Angelin Prejlocage and Laurent Garnier's concert at the Salle Pleyel. She created scenographies for exhibitions at the Musée des Arts Décoratifs, the Musée de Quai Branly, both in Paris, and the Palais des Beaux-Arts in Lille. And she also worked for such brands as Les Galeries Lafayette. She's also an illustrator, and she writes children's books that are published by Albin Michel. So we'll be talking about lots of forms of creation tonight with our guest, Constance Guisset. Bonsoir, Ms. Guisset.
Bonsoir. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, thank you very much for being with us on the Zoom. I know Zoom isn't exactly the best way to meet, but I know that this way, at least, we get to know you a bit better and know some of your work. And in order to get to know you, I'd like to start with the very first and probably obvious question that everybody asks when they meet you and your work. You graduated from l'ESSEC Business School. You also went to Sciences Po Paris. You went on to a 1-year internship at the Japan Parliament in Tokyo. And then you decided to switch, in a way, to design. What made you switch? Was it because Sciences Po was not exactly what you hoped it would be? Or what was the call about?
In fact, I don't have the feeling that I switched path, because I had the feeling that creation was in my life from the very beginning. But it was more integrated when I was a student. When I was at Sciences Po, I used to spend 1 day a week in a carpentry workshop. And I used to practice sculpture, calligraphy, and many things like that. And from the very beginning, I was quite good with doing things with my hands. That's how it started also. My grandfather was an inventor, and he bought me a small saw with my parents, and I was playing with wood when I was already 11. I still have this saw at the workshop here. So, and I think it was very much integrated. And when everything is about learning. So I enjoyed very much learning when I was at school, when I was after at l'ESSEC. And when I was studying at l'ESSEC, I was just like doing all the set designs for parties and playing sports a lot. And then I went to Sciences Po. I thought maybe I can work in creation and work with creators. So I went to Sciences Po and I thought, okay, maybe I can do Quai d'Orsay. So I learned Japanese and then I went to Japan. And then when I came back from Japan, I thought, okay, I don't want to study anymore. And the real thing that made me change is when I began to work, because it's okay when you're studying that you can practice carpentry and do whatever you want and lie to your teacher and don't go to school and then do something else at the same time. But then when you're working, then there's something a bit different. And I felt completely trapped. And I really realized that creation was, in fact, in the center of my life, and I really needed to be there. And so I wondered if I wanted to become an artist or a designer. And that's an important question, I think, because I decided for design because I felt more comfortable with building of objects. I felt comfortable with technique. And I think there's something very natural for some people that it took time for me to understand. But when I see my children today, I can understand that it's really in you from the beginning, the way you look at things, the way you try to understand imbrications, the kind of way of seeing things in general. And this makes you someone who builds, or someone who dreams, or someone who writes, or someone that the way of expression is different from one person to another. And I'm this kind of person, and I think I felt it. So I went back to school because I needed some reassurance. I felt I was not good enough and not ready to become a designer right away. And I thought that I needed to be taught many things. And I was also hoping that the school would send me a signal, in a sense, and tell me, okay, then it's possible for you, or you have this spirit, or I don't know. And then I went to school, and that's the way it started. But really, I feel that I was a builder from the very beginning.
You said you went back to school. You actually went back to l'ENSCI, which is so a design and engineering school. And you said you wanted the school to send you a signal, but I feel like in a way it's the I wouldn't say the market, but it's probably the field that sent you a signal. Right after you graduated in 2007. And in 2008, so just 1 year after graduating, you were awarded some of the prizes that I mentioned earlier. So the Grand Prix du Design de la Ville de Paris, the prize for the public of the design parade at la Villa Noailles. You won 2 grants from the VAA, a French Institute for the Valorisation of the Innovation in Design. So I mean, I guess that's a sign when in your first year you already win pretty much every award out there. Did that change the way you probably felt about your new occupation, but did that also change the way you worked? Having such recognition at such an early stage in your career, did that mean something that you would work in a different manner?
So I think there are different questions there. So first, it's true that I was extremely lucky and to win those prizes, and I was a bit more. I was older than other students, so maybe it was a bit easier for me to understand where I wanted to go and how fast I could get to things. And it's true that it reassured me a lot because I really needed that. From the beginning, I had decided that if I were a bad designer or if I were not successful, I would do something else and I would be able to change again. It was very clear to me that I could create in any field. In fact, I felt that, creation is in everything. I think that you can be an entrepreneur and create a lot of things. And I felt I was ready to change again if I were a bad designer. So it was very important for me to have this recognition, validation in a sense. And because it's a huge change. I mean, you begin in a life where, things are kind of easy in the work because you've been studying a lot, so you have the way of thinking that corresponds to your job, and then you go back to deconstructing, because design is about deconstructing a lot, and you go back to deconstructing, and you need to be quite strong, but at the same time to be able to put you into danger. And what is true is that when I got those prizes, it was at the same time really cool because it really helped me. And maybe if I had to wait for 5 years, I would have changed again or think of another way. I don't know exactly what I would have done. But then it's also a real danger, because when you're too successful in the very beginning, and I was a bit too old in the sense that soon after that I got my children, so I was trapped in, you know, this kind of life where time has a real importance. And when you're a creator, then you need to have thousands of minutes in front of you to test and just lose your time by doing. I mean, this is very important. And so I was taken by time very fast. So this is not a very good point, but at the same time, it was really cool because it went quite fast and it helped me. But it was a tough way to go, because I had a feeling that when I was studying at NC, I was working at the same time as part-time job. I was the administrator of the Burlek studio. And so I was having 2 jobs at the same time. And then when I began to work, I was very fast a mother and a designer in the beginning. So was it was never ending. But then I feel I was extremely lucky to win that. And to be honest, there's something else that I need to say, because I'm very much of a competitor. I've been practicing sports a lot, and I love competition in a good way. I just like, I like to play, I like to compete, I want to win something. Sometimes I always want to perform and so it was really cool that I could express myself also in that. And I'm also an extremely deep worker. In fact, I work a lot. I'm able to work for hours, and I'm never stopping. So that's also what helped me, I think, beginning so fast.
And right after that, you graduated in 2007, you won pretty much everything in 2008. And in 2009, you founded your own design studio, so Constance Guisset Studio. Was this just a necessary sort of entrepreneurial step? Or did it help you? Did it give you the right setting and the right tools to create? Is this about the atmosphere and the tools you need?
No, I think it's just an entrepreneurial step. It's true that I was extremely confident with that, because I've been raised in an entrepreneur family. So entrepreneurship is really something extremely natural in my family. I think that I've been taught that you need to take things when you want to have them, and everything is difficult, and you need to really perform to get, and you need to be independent. That was extremely clear from the very beginning of my life. And so it was quite natural. And then I had been running the Burlex studio for some time, so I was quite confident with that. But then, to be honest, when you're a designer, you need to begin as an independent before being an entrepreneur. And I skipped this step because it was easier for me. It was faster, and maybe I lost some time, money, I don't know. But then I was directly to the next point. So and then it gave me a frame. Of course, it was a frame for my work, and I could welcome also people working with me. And I really like working in a team. I really have this sports stuff, ridiculous competitors thing, but it's true that I like to be with a team. So very fast I tried to gather a team with me. It was important.
So let's dive into your studio, because I have no clue what a design studio actually looks like or feels like, or is it, how does it work? So is it like an atelier d'artiste and it's everybody doing their own stuff, and or is it like a cooking brigade and everybody has a very specific task? How does it work?
So maybe you can show the small film I sent you, so that people and I can comment some of the images. So we're in about 10 people in the studio, and the way it works is that from the very beginning I draw projects. I have ideas. I make some small models, just exactly what you see me using there. I made those small models. Sometimes they are really terrible models, but and I have my team understand that, and so we check, we understand, and then it goes to the computer of the people working with me, and we begin doing it on 3D, and then it goes back to modeling again, and then back to drawing again. And so I'm of course in the very beginning of the stuff. And then in my studio, there are different people. There are some people that have a real defined task. For example, administrator, and for example, Lucy is working deeply with me every day, and she's doing the administration of the whole studio, but also she's working a lot on the rest of my creation life. For example, helping me on texts, on thinking. She's buying me some books. She says, okay, you should read that, you should see that, etc., etc. So she's nourishing me a lot also with the stuff. And then we have one regisseur also that is doing many things, and also some projects. And we have those designers, and then you can see here that they're working on 3D. So as for me, I work less now on 3D because I don't need to, or sometimes I just like model in 3D and then it's done. And but they know me so well in my studio. They look like annoyed on the video, but they know me so well that they know exactly what I'm talking about when I'm just like talking. And what is important in my studio is the atmosphere. Really, it's like a living creature. Everything has to be in osmosis. There's really something very strong between us all. And my team is here for a long time. Some people left, of course, but because they were heading for other places in the world, Korea or South America, or even south of France, etc. But most of the time, people who work at the studio, they stay at the studio, and I really feel that that my work is better with them because they know me so well, and they put the details where sometimes I forget to put the details. They push me a lot. They are sometimes in contradictions. Sometimes I have to fight. Sometimes to get things because I'm sure of some things, and I have them try again. And so design is really a tough task because it's never one. I think half of the projects that I design are made. The rest is lost somewhere in my cardboards. I don't know, on my in the computers is somewhere, and we have to accept that this cannot exist. And you know, when you're creating, then you put so much energy, so much affection in the things that you do, that it's very painful when it's not working. And sharing that with people that you really like and that you appreciate is strong and makes you feel stronger together. But it's true that it's not easy, and that's why we need to be like in a ship. I have the feeling sometimes I'm the captain of the vessel, and I'm taking everyone into storms, and we have to go through oceans, and you never know what you're going to get. And until the end of a project, you don't know. And a project, it lasts from 1 to 3 years minimum. Sometimes it's 5 years. And you have up and downs all the time. And, you know, sometimes I feel that I'm just like troubleshooting. I'm trying to solve problems. And then that's the way it is. But it's, and so and people here at the studio, they switch the projects. Because we are very agile and we have 40 projects at the same time, usually. And you cannot tell before. You have an idea of how long it will take, but you're not completely sure. And so to be ready for that, you need everyone to be ready to go ahead on one project. So that's why we exchange projects all the time. And sometimes everybody helps one person. And so everybody knows about all the projects. And that's very important.
And so what we're seeing in all these images, I guess, are some of the very important steps in the project of how exactly an object is born. You just said you were the captain of a ship. In your writings, you also said that working on a project as a process is like an ocean crossing. I would like to ask what you mean by that, and also what it is that we're seeing. Take us through like the birth of an actual object. So we saw that it sort of starts with a drawing, and then it starts with modeling, and then goes onto the computer and then I guess it's all prototypes, or?
Yeah, you're right. In fact, we have 3 films, but I just sent you one. But we have one step that is drawing, modeling, and then going onto the computer. Then we have one step that you have to convince the client. You have to follow the project with him and to convince him. And then it goes to the company. And the company then makes some tests. Goes ahead with fabrication, and it never works. Usually it never works. People say it's not possible, madam, very complicated. And so that's always what I hear. And then you have to fight for things to work, but you also have to listen to people, because very often they know better than you. I mean, sometimes they need to be pushed, but sometimes they just like know better than you, because a designer is very someone that works on general technique. So I confess we are quite good at technique, and there's something maybe I will talk about later. But of course, when you go to someone that is a specialist of injection, he's better at injection than you may be. So you know how it works, and you can push him, but still he will tell you in the end, or he will be the decider saying, okay, I'll go for it or not. I'm not putting my stuff and my machines into danger for you. And so you need to find solutions with the problems you have. That's why very often when I'm asked by parents what their children should do to learn design later on, I answer that mathematics is very important. And for me, every design project is like an equation with several unknowns. And every time I have a problem, people come to me and say, okay, we have a problem, because I'm the problem solver, of course. And I say, okay, what do you have? What we get? And then, and from the very beginning to the end, I have the feeling that I'm just like finding solutions. And it's a very mathematical way of thinking. And because also it was very natural for me. I love mathematics, and it's very clear to me that it's linked. And most of the people working with me used to be good at math, because they see in 3D, they see, it's really a way of thinking. And but it's true that it's not easy. And then you get back from the editor, he sends you prototypes, and then the prototypes never work. And then you go back to the fabrication guy and say, and then there's the commercial people. They say, okay, it's too expensive, or we should find solutions, or it's never going to work on the market, because, marketing people, they know better than everyone that what will work. Whereas I think that creators know better. They feel stuff, because we are just like seismographs, of the society in a sense. It's not of me, it's a quote. And I think we know a little bit earlier, and marketing people, they just name things after you make. And so sometimes you need to push a lot to make people understand that what is really going to be important or not. And you can make mistakes, and that's it. Of course you make mistakes, but then you need to believe so much in that, and that you need to take everyone with you in the project.
I'd like to dive right into the subject at heart, which is what exactly is design. But first we have a question from Leila, who's reacting to what you just said about the studio being so involved for such a long time. And Leila would like to know what kind of project can take 3 years in the agency, or why would it take such a long time in a way?
I think when it comes to designing a simple object, I would call simple object something like in ceramics, one material, one person who fabricates, very easy packaging, very easy industrialization, very easy. Everything is easy except for the technique. Of course, you know that it's always complicated ceramics. But anyway, you feel that you know, and this takes from the beginning you design to the moment when you show 3 months at least, because you need to understand, to be sure to work. Just the elaboration step is quite long. And then next, it goes to the editor that says, okay, let's go for this, but then comes back with some feedbacks, and then you go to the fabricator, and then very usually he says, okay, sure, we can do it, and then he tries, and they said, eventually it's not so easy, so madam, it's complicated, etc., etc. This part, the complicated part, complicated madam, and then you find solutions, and then you get 6 months, and it's the easiest way. And then in the end, you got it. And then you have to choose the colors. You have to choose the packaging. You have to think over that. You have to think of the distribution. Where do you show it? You show it on a fair, not on the fair. How do you get that? You have the communication stuff, and you have the photographs, etc. Okay, minimum 1 year.
And that is true. That is true whether you're designing a USB key or I don't know, a chair or a huge
a chair is more than that. A chair, it depends it depends also on the people you're working with. For example, if you're working with an edition company that is extremely good at chairs, that makes chairs all the time, then it's faster. But if you work with a company that makes chair, but also sofas, but also lamps, etc., he's less experienced in chairs, so it takes more time, because you need together with him to find really good solutions, and you need both of you. It's a real collaboration. You need to put all the expectations on that. But for example, I'm working with the Italian company now, working on chairs. I think they've been asking for us to make proposals. Maybe we send them, I don't remember, maybe, I don't remember, because the time with the lockdown is terrible, but maybe before summer, I would say. And then we've been discussing of how to do that in 3D, etc. It was for sure before summer. And then now he made some prototypes, so it's 6 months later. And so we are expecting it to be released as a prototype, which is different from industrialized version, because industrialized version, you've been solving all the problems, you know the price, you know your process from the whole stuff, and it's only one material. So one material is easier than 3 materials, and then it's minimum 1 year. It's impossible, because you need to try and you make mistakes, and whatever you may think about it, because people say, oh, architects, designers, they don't know, they make mistakes, etc. But in fact, it's reality. Of course, when you make Excel tabs, then it's easier. It's just like one cell after the other, and still you can make mistakes. But imagine when you try to print something, it's 2 dimensions. Then you print. How many times you have problems? So imagine in 3 dimensions. Then it's just like a cubic problem. So that's really the way I cannot explain. It's just very long, and this is at least for 1 year. But when it comes to having several materials, when it comes to having a technique, certification, light, for example, when it comes to making, for example, I just like recently, I've been working on a perfume bottle. I think it's 5 years, because the moment when they release the bottle, I've seen now the bottle is finished, etc. But the moment when they release, they produce 100,000 perfumes. So just that time is very long. Then you design. So marketing team comes to you, says, okay, we'd like to make a bottle, etc. We've been doing a marketing brief. So very often I like to say that the briefs are light black briefs, because they want everything at the same time. It's contemporary, but also historical, etc. They want everything. But anyway, you go there. Very often it's competition, so you're against people. So take it. You win it. Then they go to the hierarchy, and they have to make validation of everything. Okay, plus 4 months, because it takes a long time. Then it goes to the guys, the engineers, and then you have meeting with the engineers, and they say, very complicated, madam. So this takes.
It seems like you've been told quite a few times that you're the very complicated madam.
Yes. But because also I'm a madam, so they have a prejudice. They think that I'm not able to think projects that are possible in terms of techniques. But anyway, so we solve the problems. For example, for this fantastic button. I say it's fantastic because I still love it. It's not released. I'm eager to release it. And then it's true, it was a real complex stuff. But then we managed to do it, and we found solutions together with engineers. This takes a long time, and then it goes back, to the hierarchy and the stuff, etc. And this, I think, it's maybe I began 3-4 years ago, and it's going to be released in 2021. Mm-hmm. So it's really a long way, and for a bottle of perfume, you need to make the the video, the interviews, the stuff, everything is very long. I mean, it takes a long time. So
we got that there are also so many how could we say, so many, yeah, and even I would say different professionals involved in all your projects. And Nael has a question. The question is, what do you think of the involvement of marketing teams in identifying creative leads? I mean, you said that the marketing teams tend to know better once everything is done. But do you get sometimes very useful insights or aspects from the creative, the marketing team, I mean?
To be honest, it was a bit provocative because I know that it's something that is close to you all. But I do respect a lot marketing teams because I understand their work, etc. But it's true that sometimes they base their analysis on the market. So they base their analysis on what exists already, which very often can be useful for me because I'm not a specialist of many fields. I mean, by definition, I'm a generalist. So sometimes I need to be updated on some stuff. And that's also what makes a designer interesting, because he has some new eyes, fresh eyes on stuff. But and our very good marketing teams, and especially on the perfume project, I really love the team that I'm working with because they are fantastic. The girls are extremely clever and subtle, and we can have real discussions. But it's true that sometimes, and quite often, I have briefs that are not briefs. So I can give you an example. I think the strangest brief I received, it was okay, we send you a picture of what exists and is already a bestseller in our company. And so we optimized everything, the fabrication, etc., etc. And the price in the end is 80 euros fabrication. So please try to do an object that is with the same spirit, but also with the same success as your lamp, Vertigo, etc. But try to make it bigger, but cheaper, and to make it a better set. And it's just like, okay. So yeah, I can see with you that it would be better to have a bigger lamp, cheaper. That's obvious. But that's sometimes what happens also. So it depends, I think. And also there's something about marketing teams sometimes is that they spend 6 months, elaborating a brief, and then they see you. And usually they call you, beginning of July, and they say, okay, come on, for beginning of September, it would be fantastic that you design something for us. And they've been spending, the whole year between January and July, spending time on that stuff. It's just like a PowerPoint, 10 pages. And they ask you to design the whole stuff because, of course, it's like every day in the morning, I wake up and I say, okay, today I'd like to design a vase like that. And it comes out of me like that. But everybody knows that a creator is someone that works a lot, that is never satisfied, that is doubting a lot, and that it takes a long time. So sometimes, of course, I have immediately the idea, or I have the direction very, very fast. But then after, it takes so long for me to understand the stuff and design it. And, also it's just like a small seed that you put in me, and you talk to me about a project, and it's small seed. And without me knowing it, it's just like, beginning to grow in my head. And it takes time for it to grow and to be protected from being, taken. I'm losing my English. But anyway, it takes time, and I need to put just aside and not work on it immediately. And so this moment is very important because it's, growing on its own. And then I go to it and I say, okay, now I'm ready and let's go for it. And very often it takes time. And I tell my team very often, they say, Constance, we are late designing stuff, etc. And I say, it's just not even there. So, but the moment when it's there, the moment it has come to me, that I feel the stuff, I have a vision, I know exactly where I want to go, then I go and I can be fast. But it needs time. And this, but I think it's the same for everyone. I mean, we think that a lawyer should read a contract in 2 seconds and send us because after all, it's his job. But it's the same. People are expecting other people to do things very fast because it's their job. But in fact, I mean, things take time. And if you want to do things well, if you want to design well, It's not fast stuff. I'm not, once again, I'm not doing Excel tabs. I'm trying to design things and to understand and to have, that's why I'm talking about equation with several unknown stuff, because it's complicated. You have price, you have size, you have volumes, you have use, then you have the shape, you have everything needs to be taken into account, and you need to absorb all this, and then to drink the brief, and then to give vent to something, and this takes time.
And once this is done, I'd like for you now to sort of take us through some of the projects. You just mentioned the Vertigo Lamp, which is one of your most well-known creations. We've talked about the process, you've talked about the time, marketing just probably have their ears buzzing right now. But I'd like to know more now about more of the vision behind the objects. We started by saying that there was some sort of an everyday poetry. Could you take us through some of the ideas of or the reasons, if there are reasons, or at least the impulses for the objects that you created? Here on the screen, we have the Vertigo Lamp. How was this object born?
So this is a funny project, of course, because it's my most known project, and it's for me it's even in the past. But what is funny with that is that I designed this project. In fact, I didn't design it. I made a model from the beginning. So I never made a drawing of that before it was made. So this is important to understand, because there are some projects that begin with drawing, and some projects that just begin with a vision or an intention, and then I made stuff. So I bought, I was at school. It was the very beginning of my studies at NC. I was maybe second year or something like that, or maybe even first year, I think. And then I had to do a DIY shelter, and I decided to, putain, j'ai oublié comment, to make stuff with IKEA's shelves. So I was, comment on dit tresser en anglais? Je sais plus comment on dit.
Intertwining in a way, or
wiring, maybe? Wiring. Oh, sorry, I forgot the word, but it will come back. And I did that, but I was looking for a ceiling for that, for a roof. And then I thought, okay, maybe if it's DIY, maybe I can take a lamp structure, and I can maybe take a very big wire. So I took Quechua tent, and I destroyed it, and I kept only the wire, and I put it together, and I began to put ribbons from one to another. And it was bigger ribbons. It was not nice. It was the lamp was too small, and I tried many things, and I was doing it on the floor, and then I was putting it in the ceiling, and checking it, and during one night, I don't know why, tension came, because I was just like making it bigger, and then tension came. I put it up. It was already 2 meters, and I saw it, and I said, wow, and I felt something was happening there. And so I presented it, and it was shown at school, etc. And it was shown in some fairs. And many marketing people came to me and said, maybe Vertigo, etc. But then everybody decided that it was not commercial. So maybe I had many editors that turned down my proposal to edit it, saying it was not commercial enough. Because the marketing team or the commercial team, which is not the same, I agree, said it was not commercial enough. When you know today the kind of bestseller it is, you understand how it was a little bit too much aside. Even I hadn't understood I could feel it was important, but I hadn't understood the potential of the lamp, because I could not analyze. I knew nothing about the market. I didn't know that the place in your living room that is empty with a bulb hanging needed to be filled. I had any idea of that. But then I felt that this stuff was interesting because it was a shelter, and I like objects to be kind of soft with people, and I feel that people feel comfortable under it, and I immediately felt that. And that's something really I'm looking for in my objects, because I'm trying not to protect people from reality, but in a sense, yes. And I'm very lucky, because this object is now very much sold, and people keep on liking living with it. Sometimes people say we are fed up with Vertigo, we've seen it so many times, etc. And say, okay, you've seen it, but what is the reason for you to buy something? Is it because you saw it at the neighbors, or you're fed up with it because you saw it at the neighbor, or just you are happy to live with it because it brings you something? And this object, I think, has one quality, that is, it brings you some kind of comfort. I don't know how to say that. It's just like, it's looking after you in a sense. It's a bit strange to say that, but we feel something. And recently I decided, not only me, but also the editor decided to make a new version of that, which is a real danger for a designer. But for me, you know, when I decided to design the Vertigo, I was a student beginning my studies, and I didn't have access to glass. I didn't have access to technology, lighting technology. And so I said, okay, I would love to redesign it, because I'm sure that today I would do something different with the same spirit. So we decided to make a new one. This is the one you see now on the screen. And technology is inside the glass in the middle. So it's very interesting in terms of marketing. I don't want to make a...
Yes, this is about creation, not marketing. But
but it's interesting because it took me a long time to understand what I should do, not to make the older Vertigo not so, I mean, to make it better or not better. So it's different. It's not better. It's just like the older one is very fresh. It's very simple, and it's affordable for everyone. I mean, affordable, we can talk about that later, and the new one is different, is more refined in a sense, but it's not only a good point to be refined, because sometimes you don't need things to be refined. So, but at least I'm solving some technology problems. So we have the light inside, it's finished. So when you give it to the user, he has no choice in terms of light. The light is there. Whereas the old one, when you give it to the user has to choose the bulb, and he doesn't know, and it's melting, etc., etc. So it's a more finished object. It's an object of someone that is more than 40 years old, and whereas it was the precedent one was the object of someone that was only 25 or something like that. So the ways of thinking is different. Maybe I wouldn't have been able to design the first one now. Maybe I'm too experienced in a sense, and I know too much about market. I don't know. But at that moment, I was maybe fresh enough. I was maybe, but still, I'm never happy. So I'm never satisfied with the object. So I think I have the same kind of deep desire in me, but it's different today. So I don't know if I would do the same today. I have no idea. But anyway,
this is quite a spectacular object in the sense that it takes a lot of volume, and it's extremely visible. Could you tell us a bit more about this object? Which just a simple, maybe not, but a USB key. What was your approach there?
Here it's a funny project, because I did that project, not exactly this one, but the one just before that we don't have here. At the same time, I was doing the first set design for Angelin Préjocage. Means that I was working on the half of millimeter in this project, and I was working on meters at the very same time. This project was quite simple in a sense, because Lassie boss came to me and said, okay, I want something from you, something funny, something that you put on the table, there's some fun happening with that, and it's a strong one, etc. And so I decided to make a kind of, geek, but funny and light at the same time object. So you have it on the table, and it's a culbuto, so it's moving. So you can put stuff on the top. You can put I like to make a small joke, but it's really a joke, but I like it. So men put their business cards, and women put the photographs of their children. No, it's a shitty joke, but anyway, so people put whatever they want on the top, and it's moving like that. And I like very much objects that move, because I think that they are more lively than objects that don't move. And I like this idea of having something that is a sculpture and a technical object at the same time. So that's why we did that.
For those two objects, For Vertigo, you said I sort of used wires and then I saw something and it was there. Leah asks, where do you find your inspiration for your creations? And I mean generally, not just for Vertigo or for Culbuto. Is it exhibitions? Is it streets? Is it dreams? Is it designer obsessions? What nourishes this creation process?
That's a good question, and it's not of course easy to answer, because it comes from everything that you just said. Of course, I visit a lot of exhibitions, I read a lot of books, and I observe all the time. The moment when I decided to become a designer, I realized that my look at things had changed, because I just allowed me to look at things differently. And I really was surprised myself by that, because I knew I was looking at things, and some people sometimes tell me that it's strange the way I look at things, because I'm a little bit in my mind, and I'm just like dreaming, looking at things, and you see I'm very concentrated and I don't even realize it. But then the way you look, you question everything all the time, and you decide that nothing should be taken for granted, and you think, why is it like that? Why shouldn't it be another way? Just this is creation and this is inspiration, because you see things, you know what is not what you expect, you know what you want to change, and then you go for it and see, if it's not good, what can I do so that it's good? And so I'm trying to correct my environment all the time. So it makes people like me a bit unsatisfied and not so easy to live with, because I'm never satisfied with objects, but then I don't care sometimes. I just like forget it. But very often I try to correct, I try to analyze and to understand what is not working in something. And when it comes to inspiration, it can be very vast. For example, recently I've been visiting an exhibition at Musée d'Orsay. It was a Spillaert. I was just like, I had so much, shock, aesthetic shock inside, that it inspired me many things, many sensations, and the light and how we should use light, etc. It was really strong. And also even the words that were on the walls there were very inspiring for me. And then I went to visit Ulla from Brandenburg just nearby, and it was the same shock. And then I came back home and I read Anima from Wajdi Mouad, and I was also very much inspired by that. I don't know, it's just like it's a mixture of that. And what is complicated is to find the moments and the time where you have all this and you let everything go inside you, and then you take time to create things. So you need to create those creation moments. It's complicated to explain, but it is the way also the brain is made. You try to solve problems and then you go to the bathroom and then you find solutions. It's the same for everyone, and it's the same for creators. So you see things, you don't know it's here, you just like put stuff on your seeds that you put in the beginning, and then just you come out and then you feel, okay, I have an idea, I have this, and I see that, and you see it, and then it begins. But it can be anything. It can be anything. And sometimes I also have some, like everyone, I feel that I have no more idea for some time. And usually my team says, okay, come on, Constance, it's just a moment, we don't believe you. But it's true that with time you learn how to understand that, and you learn that, and you know that there are moments where you can produce and moments you just can resolve problems, and it's not a problem. We just need to remake this situation happen again, and this is very important just to understand.
And is it the same thing when you create scenographies? You're a designer, but you're also a stage designer, and you've worked on great projects. And is it the same approach when you go for a USB key with the one that we're seeing now, or for a major ballet with, like the one with Angelin Prège-Locage that we're seeing now on screen? How do you approach space differently? Is design always about the use of space, or do you work on both ideas separately?
In fact, it's a bit the same, because it's just the scale that changes, and the way design is taking into account the user. So it's an attitude, and you just like, you anticipate what the person will see. And this is very important to understand, because, for example, when I'm designing a space, I'm in a 3D and I'm feeling like a small fish in the 3D. And I'm here and I say, okay, what do I see? What do I feel? What will I feel in the space? And then you try to put into order everything. And it's the same with an object. You're with an object and you feel it and you say, okay, what do I feel in front of it? How should I do it? And what's the use? And how can we question that and make it better? So I am trying to use a kind of empathy, and I'm in the place of the person that is going to experience the object or the space. And difference between space and objects, that the object, if you make a chair, then you can take the chair, you can throw it away, you turn around it, etc. And there's something that you're the user of the stuff. Then when it's a show, then you're in front of something and everything comes to you. And this is very different. This distance makes it different, but the rest is the same, because you have constraints. When it comes to a show, then you have to pack everything, to put everything in a truck, and to be able to mount it in to set it up in a very fast time. And this is different. The constraints are different. And also you're not working alone. You're never working alone when you're a designer, but in this very case, then you're working with another creator, which is different. For example, if you go back to the first shows of Engin Préjocage in paper, the first beginning, I would say 17 years. So one day, Engin Préjocage saw an article on me in the newspapers, and it was written Constance Guisset, L'Équilibriste, etc. I was a young designer. I just had won the prize. It was 2009. I'm very bad at dates, but. And then he saw that, and he went to see my website, and he saw that I had been doing a project called Funambule, and he was working on the Funambule Jean Genet, and he wanted to make a show on that. And so he sent me an email and said, okay, hello, I'm a choreographer and I would like to meet you. And I said, oh, choreographer, Préjocage, like Préjocage. And so we met, and it was a kind of, a real meeting, I think, a real encounter. And so I proposed him with white paper, that's what you see here, because the whole text of Funambule, of course, I proposed him 10,000 ideas. And to be honest, it was my very beginnings. I was so stressed. I'm always very much stressed when I do that, because it's extremely difficult. And each time I'm beginning a project, I'm really under stress. Until I find the solution, I'm so excited that I don't see the stress anymore. But anyway, so I proposed him with the paper, because it's like Jean Genet is talking to his lover, but he's talking about creation and about white paper. And so I wanted to do something very fragile, and I wanted to work on white paper and to propose him that. So that's how it began. And it was really tough, because I discovered the scene, I discovered everything. I discovered light. I began to understand what light is. And I remember he was just beside me and said, okay, what do you think? Don't you think it's too cold? The light is just like, oh my God, what is he talking about? I just don't know. And so then I understand. And now if you ask me, I'm very good at telling you what is cold and what is not cold, and the way we should do that, like that. But it was the very, very, very beginning of my work. And after that, I asked him, I said, okay, how come you trust me that way? Because I was bringing stuff and it was really shit. And he said, what I liked was your energy, because he's also a sportsman. And so he felt that I was kind of doing competition and trying to win the competition with him. And so, I don't know, we got along very well. And then the next project was that I did for him was the night. That is the one after, maybe slide 19. And for me, it's a very strong picture, but at the same time, I think this decor was too heavy in a sense. So that's why it's coming only at the end. I thought it would be light, but in fact, it was complicated to do. It was really a moment when I was thinking of things more from the computer at that moment. And I think that it wasn't, it was too much like a 2D stuff in a sense. It works very well. I mean, it's a real success and everybody's very happy with that. And what is strong is if you see the next slide, you can see that in fact, the lines that you see, in fact, are stripes. It's not stripes, elastic. And so it's about the prison, because it's les nuits, les mille et une nuits. And so it's about escaping your life and escaping death. So it works. I mean, but I think that at that moment, I was less, I mean, it was too much from the 2D to the 3D. And then for the next one, because I've been doing 5 shows with him, next one, 21, slide 21 and 22, it was an interesting moment because at that moment, there is no set design. There's no decor. It's only a projection. So I've been filming some hair in water, and this then there was the post production, and this hair, it was if you see the slide just before, you can see that it's before the people dancing and behind, because it was screened on, it was on a very thin screen, and so we had the impression of a 3D holographic stuff. And it was a very different way of thinking. So that's why I wanted you to show the free stuff, because I think it's 3 different ways of solving the question of the decor, and it's important to understand that each time you go back to a new project, then it's as if you had erased everything before and you go back to 0. And this is the complicated part, but it's the very exciting part too. But of course, you never know what's going to get.
It seems now that we are entering a territory which I find fascinating, which is, how would you actually describe your job? Because you sort of always talk about design, so it's stage design and it's light design, but what is design? Are you an engineer? Are you an artist? Are you something completely different?
I think to understand design, you need to remind you that design, just the word, is a common word, but it's also a verb. And this is very important because it's all about action, in fact. Design is a process. And I would like to quote Molina Guy that says, design is not a profession, but it's an attitude. You're questioning everything, every object, all the time, and you try to solve problems and to find new ways of living. And I'm just an object designer, set designer. Of course, I'm doing many different things, but still, I'm working on concrete realizations in a sense. But many designers are not like me, and they work on service, they work on organization. I mean, design as a field is very large and can be applied to many, many different things. And some people that do service design, for example, they think that I'm just a decorator or something like that, someone working on just on shapes, colors, etc. And they are right in a sense, because I'm not working on the rest, but they are working on different aspects of people being together. What is common to everyone is that it all begins with the user. It's about experience. It's about empathy. It's about trying to understand what is the problem and trying to solve it. And this is extremely important. Then if you want to understand, and I invite you all to listen to that podcast, that is fantastic. It's about art, but it's not about design. But when I listen to it, I really recognize my work and the way I work. It's Pierre-Michel Menger, Les Cours du Collège de France, on France Culture. And it's really fascinating because it's all about the way we work in an iterative way all the time. And you never know, but you're convinced, and you try to convince people. And there's something like a flame inside you that you cannot explain. It's here. It's a mixture between enthusiasm and unconsciousness and unsatisfaction and enthusiasm and the rest all the time. It's a kind of a mixture between all that. And then you take things and say, okay, why shouldn't we do it differently? And then let's go for it. And this is, a designer is like that. Is trying to understand the problems. It's kind of a chef d'orchestre also that tries to understand every part of the situation, of the equation, and tries to solve it. And this is you need to have a wide view of things, but also very much detailed view, because you need to solve details.
You just mentioned how important the user is, how the audience sort of affects your work and how you try to put yourself in their shoes. I have 2 questions that focus on this aspect. Leila asks, how do you arbitrate between what the people want massively, so the trends or the air du temps, she says, and what you want to create and share? Like, could you do something that is completely out of fashion in a way? How do you arbitrate?
It's in fact, I spend my time half working on new projects that come out of my mind without being asked to, and half of the time between demands from editors. So this also makes it a bit different, because when you're completely free, then you can create crazy stuff and nobody cares. It works, it doesn't work, you're a bit before. But then if you're asked by an editor to think something, to be honest, I always try not to answer the massive question, because I'm not very much interested in that. If the question is massive, then it's already expressed, then it's already finished. So what I try to do is to understand what we will need next, in a sense, or what I don't find, what I cannot see already. And this is something that I feel deeply. But what is interesting in your questions also is that I don't always know before I'm doing what I'm doing. And this is extremely clear for many artists, I think. The moment when you're doing, you do it also by intuition, by thinking, by testing, by iteration. And then you see new things. And then it brings you to new things. And then you question that. And then you get to the next step. And then in the end, you see what you've been doing and you see, okay, what does it mean and how did I get there? And so sometimes it's very close to what you've been thinking of before, but sometimes it's different. And then, yeah, then it makes you, I don't know, but I'm not anticipating beforehand what I'm going to do. And this is important. But you're right, Leila, and you're very good at questions. I don't see you, but I can imagine you asking a lot of questions. And you're right. What is a real threat for people like me is to be taken by the market and to be asked all the time to do things, to answer technical questions all the time, and to forget to look inside what I really want to do. And so that's why everybody here, and especially Lucy, my administrator, makes everything so that I'm a bit aside from solicitations. So that's why she's taking the phone, she's taking the mails, she's helping me on many things, because I'm so much solicited. I don't know how to say that, but it was bad. But anyway, you understood it. That I need to be really like in a small island sometimes, and not to be taken. And that's why I do, for example, recently I made a series of drawings that will be exhibited. So I take this moment and I write a lot also. And I take these moments out of demand to do things that have no market. There's no one that cares about my drawings. When they're done, I show them and people like it, they don't like it, that's it. But no one asks me for that. And that's real stuff. It's a real place for freedom. It's the same with books for children. It's a moment when I don't care at all. Of course, I'm working with the editor and I show him and I'm trying to do it the best so that it's understood, etc. This is my work, this is normal. But I'm not doing something that is expected by the mass market. I just don't care about the mass market. It's just my inner view that is there, and that is, I don't know, expressing itself, and that's it.
There's a question about the market as well from Karina. You've been in the market for quite a while now. Do you have any impressions of whether the market and needs for design have changed in the last 15 or 10 years, because people now have gained access to a more democratic design, or they're more aware of design through social media? Do you see a different connection to design?
Yeah, it's very different. I think today people have a different relation to design. What is still because they kind of begin to understand it, or they think sometimes they understand it, because the market is is quite complex. But what is complex for design today, you have this responsibility that is huge to decide whether you keep on designing and keep on proposing objects or not, and why do you propose those objects? What kind of meaning is that? It cannot be for you. It cannot be just for your use. You need to be convinced that it's really changing something. And it's complicated because we don't produce stuff only that we need, but sometimes we know that the eye also needs it, and because imagination needs it. And it's about creation. It's about, you've been talking about poetry. I think it's a bit pretentious for me to talk about that, but then you need to bring something. You need to bring people to take them out of this reality that is object. But at the same time, you're responsible, and you cannot produce objects all the time because it's nonsense. So you need to find your way. And I think people today are really willing to have objects that are more durable in a sense. But what does it mean to be durable? Durability is not about materials only. It's not about only environment. It's also about visible durability. So what does it mean? It's also about style. Do we decide to design objects with a certain style, or do we decide to design objects the best way without trying to put it in a period, without trying just to make it, how do you say, intemporal in a sense? And this is important because sometimes I'm confronted to editors that tell me, yeah, you know, but this, maybe you should do it with this shape, it's more contemporary, etc. And I say, you know, because today we have this kind of Memphis-inspired movement, and for me, it's about style. And I consider that it's not interesting because Memphis, the moment when it came out, it was really a breakthrough in design. But today is just about the way you design, and it's pop and it's fun, and let's go for it, it's color, etc. But I think I think that we will most of us will be tired of that design quite soon. And this is to be taken into account, not doing things that will be too fast forgotten. And then I want just to talk about price, because I think it's very important to talk about price of objects. Just to make you understand one thing. If you buy an object that is worth 500 euros, okay, 500 euros is a lot of money. But then you can be sure that at least the object cost in the beginning 100 euros. So the fabricant, he makes it for 100 euros. Then you have the editor that sells it for, he's the one organizing the thing, missioning the designer, and organizing the distribution, etc., just making communication, etc. So it's a lot of work. And so the make that makes the object 100. Then the editor, 200, 250, okay? That's the way he sells. And he gives the money to the designer at that moment, and he gives 3% of that. So it makes, I make you calculate, it's between 6 and 9 euros for the designer. And then it goes to the market, and then there's the distribution. Distribution makes multiplied by 2 or 2.5. It makes 500, 550 or something like that. So it's impossible to think that a chair can be worth 30 euros. So, and we have on one side, this market that is where chairs are 350 euros, which is a lot of money. And you have on the other side, you all go to IKEA, and then you have the chair that is worth 15 euros or something. And this cannot exist. So what is fantastic with IKEA is that objects are quite well designed, and it's really about, there's a kind of visual quality that is important. It's very clever in terms of conception, etc. But then it brings everyone to changing objects all the time because it's so easy to change, because it's so cheap. In the past, people used to buy their sofa, something like, I don't know, 15,000 francs. I remember those moments when you were buying your sofa for the next 30 years. And it was a huge investment. And today we refuse that. We say, okay, no, I want to change, so I won't pay that much for it. And it's a real problem, because it's, when you're convinced like me that design should be affordable, there's a question that you cannot solve. Either you go to China and you're sure that everything will be cheaper, but it's not easy to handle, and it's a decision you make, but then it's more affordable. Sometimes you pick up just like some parts of it, and then you assemble it in France or in Europe, etc. So it's mix. And sometimes then you think, okay, let's do it in France, and then nobody can buy it. And it's complicated because for me, for example, I'm very much convinced, I'm trying all the time to have my editors make objects with lower prices all the time. I'm fighting all the time because they say, you know, it's your name, so we can sell it in a higher price. I say, no, please don't. Just like respect the price in the beginning, and then let's do the multiplication. Everybody has normal margin. Everybody can live out of that, but please don't make it higher. And that's why also I'm designing sometimes some small objects like the brooch that I made, because it's made in France. It's cheap, and everybody can offer his friend a small brooch. And that's really the only reason why I'm doing, smaller objects, because I'm earning not a lot out of them, but just I'm happy to be able to give them. And I have to understand that people can offer them, and they can offer designer object to someone. But when it comes to designing a chair, etc., it's very complicated to have it a price that everybody can pay.
You just mentioned the responsibility of design. So the fact that it has to be durable, the fact that it has to be almost without time or timeless, the fact that it has to be also, how could we say, not only affordable, but also well thought. There's one aspect also of design that I would like you to tell us more about. In one of your exhibitions, you wrote a text that is entitled Gender, in which you wonder whether your work would be described as delicate and dreamy if you were a man. I have two correlated questions. The first one is there such a thing as gendered creation? Do you create like a woman and I would create like a man? And also it's more of and I'm sorry if it sounds not extremely polite, but why are there so few women designers? Because there are many young women that are in design studies, that are in design schools, and yet there seem to be not that many design women or design at the head of their studio. So what is it with gender and design?
So I will answer to the second question first, if you allow me. I think we are not very numerous, and you're right, and it's a real problem, because there are many young designers in schools, and then when they work in other people's company, and they don't run their own company. But I think this has to be put into comparison with the entrepreneurs. I mean, it's the same kind of numbers. I mean, there are very few women entrepreneurs. Because it's about entrepreneurship. Being alone also, it's not only being a designer, but being alone is something that is time consuming, very demanding, not so easy to conciliate with a family life. I think today things are changing, and tasks are more shared, so it's easier for women. And so this is the first part. So I think it's a mix between women thinking they are not capable to do that, and I am like that. I mean, I'm 43, almost 44, and I'm still like that. And I sometimes I see me, excusing myself. I'm doing it all the time, and then I'm so much like a competitor, and I'm so, in a sense, I'm so decided. It's unbelievable that I am still like that, but it's so much inside me that I know that it's something that I've been taught. In a sense, we've been taught, all of us, to not to be sure, not to take things that we don't feel we are really allowed to take, and just like, if I'm sure that if I were a man, a designer, I would have a far bigger career, and I'm not sure I would like it, but I'm sure it would change. Many times some people told me, okay, yeah, we wanted someone, but we wanted someone with shoulders to handle the project, so we thought a man would be better. Okay, come on. Come on, guys. And still happens to me, and that's crazy, because that's something that the people are expecting that from you, but also inside you, we need to fight that. And we need to fight this moment, girls, when we are just like saying, oh, I'm so sorry for this, I'm not sure I'm good enough, this stuff shouldn't exist. But it's easy to say, but it's not easy to practice. So there's a mixture between the moment when you give up, when you renounce, and the moment when the people don't allow you. And this is a mixture. And when it comes to design, of course, it's a technical job, so people have this prejudice that girls are not technical, it's horrible to say, which is not completely untrue, but because we are not taught like that, because we are not expected to be technical. So we expect men to be technical, so we give them all the time the technicity of stuff, and then in the end we sometimes are a bit less technical. In my case, I confess that it's more my strength. So I'm quite technical. I'm really like that. It's the way I think. But I see that sometimes it can be the case. And happens to me all the time. I go to a factory, I meet a new editor, and in the beginning he said, you know, I have to explain you how it works. I will explain you technicity of stuff extra. Okay. And I do it without knowing it, but very often the person, my assistant, says, Constance, you've been using technical terms for 20 minutes and you've been just like justifying yourself for 20 minutes until they understood. And I don't even realize it. It's just very natural because I can see that he thinks that I'm not technical. I can see the prejudice is just in the eyes somewhere. Sometimes they say it, sometimes they don't say it. And in the end, we can have a normal discussion. But until that, the mansplaining project is underway, and I'm just like receiving all these explanations all the time. Say, come on, I know how to produce that, and you don't need to explain me. So that's why we think that girls, we do embroidery, we do colors, we do textiles, and the rest is for men because it's more serious. Then I'm coming back to gender creation, because technicity is something, and I'm not saying that girls are less technical inside, they're just not taught to be technical. And then there's a question about gender in design. What do we describe as feminine? Very often people tell me your projects are feminine, etc., etc. Because what is there behind that? The femininity is about delicacy, curves, empathy, softness, humility. But on the bad side, there is sometimes a bit childish, too soft, it's not serious, it's not technical, it's not a statement, it's futile, trivial, I don't know, whatever. And then when it comes to men design, so the positive aspects would be it's fantastic, it's a statement, it's there, it's really, it's a sculpture, it's taking space, etc., etc. And then, so this is the positive stuff, and it's very technical, you know, he understood everything. And on the bad also aspects, there are also the moment when you say, okay, come on, it's too much, it's still about, it's a statement, we don't care, there's nothing behind it, etc. So the problem is not that we gender things. The problem is what is prejudice behind that. And the fact that we think that it's not serious enough when it's kind of feminine, that's the problem. And what is also the problem is that you expect people to design things. And I'm sure I wrote this text, I'm sure that if I were a man, people would say that my work is sensible, but technical. And it's humble, but never feminine. They would never say that. But just I'm a woman, and when you see me, you can see that I'm a woman, but I'm not a small bird on the tree. I'm kind of I can be very aggressive. I don't know. I'm a competitor, etc. But still, they're expecting me to do some things a bit childish with colors and embroidery, etc. And so this is a real stuff. So I don't think it's gendered in the end, because I feel far closer to some Italian designers that are men. For example, Castiglioni, I love his work. I feel so close to his inspirations. Munari, Andrea Bronzi, etc. All these men, and I feel so close to that. And I feel so far away from people like Zadid, or, I mean, it's not about gender, it's about personality, it's about what you have in the mind. But just yet to put this label of gender, and then it's finished, and then you have women designers and men designers. And I confess sometimes when I see a project, I say, okay, this is the man stuff. But it happens to me too. But it's just to say that it's somehow it's more like it's something obvious, but in the end, it's not true. If I didn't know, I wouldn't say that.
I have one last question, because we have to finish at 9, because the students then have to go on about finding about the American elections and
yeah, you're right.
And the rest. There's one last question, and if you could answer that in a minute or two, that would be brilliant. We had in this class Philippe Stark, who gave a masterclass a year ago, and very recently he said that, you know, he thinks that design is inevitably going to disappear, and it's Victor who asked that as a question to you, because everything will now be dematerialized or digitized. What is your idea on that? What is the future of design? And you have 1 minute to tell me about that.
Okay, so I think about use and I think about the body. And thinking about the body, you need to sit, you need to rest, you need to lie, you need to eat, and this will never stop, I think. And this is really the answer. I've been taught also by many teachers that design will disappear. And in a sense, they are right, because I think the way we conceive design today is going to disappear. That's for sure. But then when it comes to dematerialization, things will be dematerialized. But the body, the sensation, we can see today we're working far away from each other. But in the end, what do we want? We want to touch each other. We want to be in the front. We are fed up with not seeing people. So this, I think, and I hope, will never stop. And there will be always room for imagination and innovation, because design is a lot about innovation and new service, new ways of thinking, new objects. And we need to be careful of the environment and of what we propose. But at the same time, we need to understand, without creation, the man is nothing. Man is nothing, because we need to create. We need to create all the time. It's our duty. It's important in everything, not only designers, but everyone like you. You need to create. You need to make something different and something better. You need to try to be better. And that's the end. 1 minute.
And I think that is a great way to end the need to design and the duty to create. I do hope that next time in your masterclass, you will be able to meet the student in person, so that we actually get to really be physically in a space. I thank you a lot for your time. I thank you for allowing us to do this on Zoom, although it's not great. Thank you for all your work. Thank you for sharing it with the students.
Thank you.
And I wish you all a very good night. Thank you all for staying so long. Thank you, Constance, for agreeing.
Sorry for being so long.
No worries, it's a pleasure. Thank you, Carole, for setting this thing up. Thank you, Florence, for helping out with everything. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night looking at the American elections. And next time you encounter an object, try to see what's behind it, because you never know. I'm trying to show a white mug on screen. That's not going to work. But if objects are in everyday poetry, it's now up to you to actually look at it in such a way. Thank you very much to all of you. Have a great night.
Bye.